guys, what's going on? It's 2 Minutes to Review. I'm Matt.
And I'm Zack.
And if you haven't joined us for one of these before, essentially what we're doing here is we're reviewing an album, whether it's old or new, and what we do is we try to keep it underneath 2 minutes, and the person who has the longest review in under 2 minutes, Price is Right rules, wins. Zack, what are we reviewing today?
Well, this episode's going to be a little different because we're not actually reviewing music. We're actually reviewing a movie. It's a movie that's been almost a decade, actually no, more than a decade in the works. Motley Crue's The Dirt, one of the most iconic, over-the-top music autobiographies. The book has finally been made into a movie. It's on Netflix for everyone to watch and stream at their leisure. And we thought, you know what? With all the hype around the movie, let's actually do a movie review. So, with that in mind, I am actually going to volunteer to go first. Just give me the dirt. Just give me the good. Oh, I don't know if that's how it goes. You know what? Who cares?
Yeah, no.
Because
it's not.
We're not reviewing that song.
Yeah.
Because I think you can tell how we feel about it just from the way that we did that rendition.
All right. So, let's actually talk about what we came here to talk about. Let's go ahead and do the movie review. Zack?
So, tell me when you're ready to start timing me on our official Epic Footnote Productions timer.
All right. Got it. Here we go. Ready?
All right. Nope. Now I am.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Give me the dirt.
You know what? No, let it count. I don't care. I really tried going into this movie for what it was. I wanted just to enjoy it for the fun depiction of rock star decadence that it was. But unfortunately, two things that I was afraid was going to happen with this movie happened. The first, what I really loved about the book, now obviously everyone remembers Ozzy snorting ants and Nicky dying and coming back to life and all the crazy stuff that they did in the book. But what I really loved about the book was how it captured the music industry, or at least what it took to break big in the 80s, especially if you look at the chapter The Machine. It really highlighted how all the pains and struggles that it took just to make it in the industry, and all the stuff that the Motley Crue had to do to get above that, because at the beginning, labels hated them. And even throughout the career, they really didn't get along with the execs. And I thought the book did a great job at capturing that, while as the movie, it really did focus on the crazy rock star lifestyle. And anytime that they did talk about the industry, they either glossed over it really quickly or just glamorized it as if it wasn't that big of a deal, or that they overcame it really fast. So I think they really missed an opportunity to highlight how things changed from the 80s to the 90s. One thing that really drove me nuts was that when Vince leaves the band, they make it sound like, oh, all the fans didn't show up because Vince was gone. They did so poorly because Vince was gone. When really, it was because the 90s were a different time, and a band like Motley Crue just wasn't really accepted. So I thought it was a missed opportunity. Now, the second thing that I was afraid was going to happen was that they kind of didn't do a great job at capturing different aspects of each person's, or at least each person's point of view of the movie. Now, they did it, they had a lot of different narration, and they did once in a while have characters break the fourth wall, which was really fun, especially when Mick Mars flat out looks at the screen and goes, yeah, Doc never came to this shithole of an apartment. We met him here, and actually there was another guy manager who for some reason, he's not in the movie. So they did that once in a while, but I think they really could have done a better job at showing multiple angles, because in the book, you could literally read 5 pages of an incident from Tommy's perspective, and then the next page, Vince will go, no, that's not what happened at all, and give a completely conflicting report. And I think especially, as I mentioned, with Vince leaving the band, they really could have had a fun time showing that both sides had different stories in how that actually happened, and they could have done a better job just playing around with it. And frankly, it also could have done a better job at just hiding the fact that a lot of things are inaccurate in the movie historically. I think it could have been a lot of fun just to be like cover up that's, or at least help you forgive the fact that this wasn't an accurate portrayal of the history of the band. So I'll give this much. Machine Gun Kelly was phenomenal as Tommy Lee. And Ewan Ryan, who plays Mick Mars, he was phenomenal as Mick Mars. And there were a lot of fun moments in the movie, especially during the 80s aspects of the band. But the truth is, there's just so much that they could have done better. And the fact that they literally erased everything from 1995 to 2000, I'm not even going to get into the last 20 minutes of the movie. And the fact that they literally act like certain people in the band's history, cough, Pamela Anderson, cough, didn't even exist. It just, the movie was too flawed for me to really enjoy it.
Okay.
Now, I already know that I'm way over the 2 minutes. I don't care, though.
Are you?
I mean, and honestly, I'm going to even say that after your review, I kind of still wanted to go into this a little bit further.
That's fine.
Star Rise, and I apologize for rambling, but just like the book and the movie, I rambled. I would give this 2.5 stars.
2.5. Okay.
It was a fun movie for what it was, but given how well documented the band has been in so many forms, like even TV specials, I just feel like they really were trying to hide a lot of stuff. For a movie that was trying to show, as Nikki Sixx says, all the warts and all of the band, they actually really didn't do that much to show the true Motley Crue. Sorry, now it's your turn.
Okay. I'm ready whenever you're ready to go.
3, 2, kickstart this review.
So let me take this from the perspective of I didn't read the book. I never had a chance to pick it up, and it kind of, by the time I was really interested, I was just like, I don't want to read it. It's old by now. But anyway, the movie, from a pure perspective of, was this movie entertaining? Yeah, it was entertaining. In the beginning, I actually did enjoy what I was watching, except for the fact that I knew that this wasn't supposed to be a comedy. It was supposed to be a serious depiction of a band and what it took for them to start and go through, and, you know, all of the debauchery that went along the way. Yes, they did show a lot of the debauchery, and it's the Crue, so yeah, it's to be expected, but, I mean, you could have focused a little bit more on the band and the music and what they were, what they were going through at the particular point in time. Like when they were forming the band, I thought that was a really interesting time, showing how Tommy met Nikki and them jamming, I guess, in what was a hotel room at the time, and then Mick kicking the other guy out of the band. That was interesting. But yeah, they're going through, and then after they hit it big, yeah, you know that they're over the top and extravagant and the whole 9 yards. They really could have maybe backed down on that a little bit. And then about halfway through the movie, after the Ozzy scene, and after they're hitting the road, and I think it was right after when Vince and I forget his name, Rizzo, when they got in the car accident and he died, the movie really kind of just took like a downturn. It was just very slow, and it took a long time to really say a lot of different things. I think if they maybe elongated the movie a little bit, it would have helped it and tell like the story of everybody else, because you feel like you're going into the Heroin Diaries when they start talking about Nikki, and everybody else kind of gets glossed over until they bring Vince in, and then it's like, okay, well, here's a day in the life of Tommy. Okay. And then, oh, Mick just had hip surgery. Where's their stories? I feel like there was a lot more that could have been told if you elongated the movie a little bit. 20 minutes, half hour, I think would have benefited a lot for the movie. But overall, if you're looking for something to watch about Motley Crue and you want to learn a little bit about the backstory without reading the book, yeah, give it a shot.
So before we dive too deep into, because I feel like we both have a lot to say about this movie, so sorry in advance that this is going to be a longer episode. Rating.
I'm going to give it, I'll go 3 stars.
Okay. So you just had to up me by half a star.
Only reason I'm going up by half a star is because, like I said, I'm coming from a perspective where I didn't read the book.
Which I still actually can't believe you didn't. And, sorry, sidetrack. Hanoi Rocks drummer, Razzle? No.
Razzle, that's it.
Yes, Razzle. But I still can't believe you didn't read the book.
Yeah, I by the time I got to the book, I was like,
it a big misconception about the book is that it's just all about how they screwed girls and did drugs, when it actually really dives deeper than that. And it's just a really great examination of what it was like to be in a popular band during that era. Both from and it just did a great job of capturing, like, so for instance, in the book, they do a great job at capturing everyone's point of view, including John Corabi, who, according to the movie, doesn't know how to speak.
Yeah.
But like, even like in his chapters, he does a great job at highlighting how what Nikki was saying, like, well, that's not how I remember it. And even Doc had a much more bigger voice in the book. So like literally everyone had a great, and there's even some stuff in the book that I'm like, I was reading, I'm like, oh, this is going to look great on a screen. And I was like, when I was watching the movie, I'm like, they're really not going to include that? That would have been a great scene.
Right, and I think that all comes down to the years and years and years that it took to get this thing out, and that I'm sure that at one point in time they had this big project that was laid out, and they were going to get all of this in there, but then they had to keep cutting back and cutting back and cutting back, and then once Netflix picked it up, because Netflix has got so much going on right now, they're like, okay, you're limited to this amount of time.
But you see, and it's funny because I keep going back and forth as to whether or not if they had made this into a TV series, like 8 episodes, I think it could have. Maybe a TV series on Netflix. No, on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, no, on Netflix.
I thought you were saying like, on NBC.
No.
Okay.
No, that would just be a Law and Order episode. No, like a Netflix TV series.
Okay.
Where it's like broken up into 8 episodes, and like almost like each chapter is almost an episode, because each chapter really is filled with some like both dramatic but funny moments that could have made for a really compelling thing. But at the same time, I also don't know if that would have been enough, because in the end of the day, not only is this a Motley Crue movie, but this is a Motley Crue movie produced by Motley Crue.
Right. And
I really hate how much the band is like, we wanted to show the full story and be completely honest, when as soon as you watch it, it's like, no, this is not completely honest at all.
Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Because once again, I didn't read the book. Did they talk a lot about Dr. Feelgood in the book?
They talked a good amount of it.
Because they completely glossed over, I feel, like an entire piece of their history with Dr. Feelgood.
What's interesting is that I actually really enjoyed that portion of the movie when they're kind of highlighting that they're sober, but it really wasn't. Right, they weren't happy. They were still actually even more unhappy than before.
Right, it's they're the sober band, the sober no fun band now, and they didn't talk about the movie. They were on the music. They were on tour.
Like everything leading up to 1990, I actually think they did a decent job at depicting. And it was, I actually loved the scene of like from the eyes of Tommy. It's like, you want to know what it was like?
Yeah,
like that was a lot of fun.
That was a cool shot.
Yeah, and it was just really well done. And again, Machine Gun Kelly. If you had told me that was actually Tommy Lee, I'd been like, yeah, that probably actually is really. He did a phenomenal job.
Oh, absolutely. I think they casted him spot on. I couldn't get past the fact that I've seen Vince Neil somewhere before. The actor who played him, hang on, his name is Daniel Weber, and the guy who I kept seeing every single time I'm looking at him, he's been in a lot of movies over the years. His name is Scott Bakala.
Wasn't he in Rock and Rolla?
Which one? Daniel Weber?
Yeah.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you who any of these guys were except for Machine Gun Kelly.
So, well, the guy who played Mick Mars, wait, do you not watch Game of Thrones?
Nope.
Oh, come on, dude.
I know.
So
hashtag everybody hates me now.
Well, yeah, that was before this episode, but yes. No.
Yes, I'm that. I'm that idiot.
We love you, Matt. No, but like, so actually, I was so excited when they casted him because he plays one of the most disgusting villains on Game of Thrones. Hashtag Ramsay. So, and I actually thought he was perfect. So it's interesting because I know that they don't really go too much into Mick Mars' story, but I was actually pleasantly surprised at how much they did and how much they really captured well that Mick was kind of a different level than the band.
Right.
He was, even by the time the band started, he was already kind of older and a little bit over a lot of stuff.
Right, but here's the thing. In the movie industry, he doesn't have the quote-unquote sexy struggle.
Oh, absolutely not.
Nikki did every drug under the sun and died and came back. Then you have Vince and his daughter.
Yeah.
Tommy was just Tommy and doing everything on the planet. And then Mick, now he's got this severe degenerative bone disease where everything fusing together, and it's not as sexy as the other ones.
Going real quick before, because I actually do want to share two of my favorite things about Mick Mars from the book that I really wish they had included in the movie. So I watched the movie with my wife, who is an addictions counselor, and she made the comment that this movie would make someone in recovery relapse.
Yeah.
And that was actually kind of a compliment, because they did a great, because she kind of explained to me, they do kind of do a great job at highlighting that the relationship that someone has with the needle, the way that they're not necessarily romanticizing it, but the way that it really shows how dependent Nikki or someone like Nikki can be when they're an addict.
Right.
So I actually thought, even though it definitely got toward the Heroin Diaries a little bit.
Yeah, it really did.
Which is also a great book, actually.
It is a great book, but you know what? I feel because Nikki is the leader of the band, that it kind of...
he got a huge say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He got a huge swing in this thing.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but you're going to tell me with a straight face that you're not going to even reference one of the most polarizing and popular relationships in rock and roll history. You're going to act like that doesn't exist. Like, it was funny. I even, we're watching halfway, and we're getting towards the end, and I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, Jen, they're not even going to show Pamela Anderson, because I already knew that wasn't going to happen. And she's like, wait, they're not even going to reference her? Because, most people know Tommy Lee. If you ask them, hey, how do you know Tommy Lee? Oh, because he's the guy who dated Pamela Anderson, right?
Yeah, they had that other video.
They had that other video. Literally, that you could almost make an argument that whole history between Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson would have been a much more popular movie than a Motley Crue biopic. It's kind of mind-boggling. I mean, I get it, because there's definitely a lot of legal issues, I'm sure, involved, because it doesn't paint Tommy Lee in a good picture at all, nor should it, because, he did some pretty terrible things during that relationship, but it's kind of and I know I said don't even get me started on this, but literally, from the last 20 minutes, you're going to tell me with a straight face, Nikki, so after the Karabi era ends, Nikki went from his father's gravestone to Tommy Lee's house to amend for a wedding that happened years ago that Tommy Lee already was over with in real life. Then from there, they went to the hospital to pick up Mick Mars after hip surgery. And then from there, literally from there, they went to a bar where Vince Neil has been since his daughter died, completely forgetting the fact that he had a solo career too. And that's where they decided to get back together? You're going to tell me that with a straight face?
It's the magic of cinema.
But what's mind-boggling about that is that, A, that whole thing just literally ignores the fact that not only from 1996 to 2005, which is when they pick it up at the end, they completely forget that Generation Swine happened, that Tommy Lee and Vince Neil punched each other out in the airport, and Tommy Lee left. Then they did another album with a different drummer. Then they reunited into that. They make it sound like that was how they reunited, when really, if not only did the book document the first reunion, where it was literally in a hotel room with a bunch of lawyers and Tommy and Nikki on one side of the room and Vince on the other side of the room with his lawyer. That's how they actually reunited, according to the book, in the first time around. And then if you actually watch, around 2005, VH1 released a documentary that they filmed of the 2004 reunion, where they actually got shots of it in real time as it was happening. And it's fascinating because they didn't even, if you watch the footage, it really highlights how this reunion could have folded literally a week before it announced. They couldn't get everyone in the same room until a photo shoot that they were taking photos. That's why I document the band's history so well in so many formats that to act like this movie is what actually happened is almost a slap in the face to any real music fan.
Right, and that's why I'm saying that the movie could have very much have benefited. I mean, it wasn't going to include everything else in 20 minutes or half an hour, but if you took the time and maybe, like you said, to do a segmented thing where each chapter is a piece of the movie,
yeah,
great. But I mean, I think you'd be looking at something longer than The Lord of the Rings if you went to try to get all of that.
Oh, I mean, I'm not even saying that they should get all of that.
How many pages was the book? Was it over 5?
It's a lot. It's a lot of pages.
Okay.
But at the same time, there's definitely scenes that would have been so much fun to have seen acted out. So, for instance, if I may, one that's involving Mick Mars. So, I believe it's the night that I forget that if it's the night that Nikki Sixx dies or if it's Razzle dies in the car crash, but I'm pretty sure it's Nikki Sixx. Mick drinks himself almost to death. He's on the beach. He's like in the waves, and suddenly he wakes up and he thinks he died because he doesn't know how he got on the beach. He's washed up like he was a whale. So he thinks he's dead, and it's almost the way he describes it is as if he's an angel floating from the beach to the house where the band was, and he's floating, and he sees through the glass door his bandmates crying because of Nikki, and he's thinking, "Oh man, I really am dead. This is weird. I'm watching everyone who cares about me cry about my death." And then suddenly, like as he's trying to get closer to the group of people, he smacks his head against the glass door window, and everyone turns around and he's like, "Wait, can you see me?" Like it's one of those like really screwed up moments, but it could have been like a really fun way to like tie in the fact that, you know, a major thing happened in the band, and then also Mick Mars was going through his own struggles. Like that is a fun scene that like still showcases the craziness of the band while getting Mick involved a little bit more too.
Right. And then also in other interviews from, you know, not necessarily related to this, but just because of the history of the crew, the guys say that, you know, don't let Mick fool you. He was one of the most debaucherous people during this whole time. And it's like he drank vodka. Okay. But we all know that he drank vodka like Smirnoff was going out of business.
Yeah.
It doesn't really show the real Mick Mars. I feel like, yeah, he was older and he didn't take part in some of the hijinks that were going on, but to say that, you know, he respects women like he did in the movie, that's like no one in that. And actually
that's
not true.
Variety did a really great in-depth review about how realistic the sexism in the movie is and how it really captures the awfulness of the 80s when it came to, you know, just treating women with respect. I recommend anyone looking it up and to read it. It's actually it's really well done. But yeah, no one in that band was an angel. Right,
exactly. And to show that Mick Mars, while he was an alien or a vampire, as they put it,
he literally looks like a vampire in a bed.
Right, but I don't think that he was the what's the word I'm looking for? I can't say angel. That he was the voice of reason. Yeah. He wasn't a voice of reason. He was just the older one who didn't want to take anybody's shit.
Yeah, which I think they captured it a little bit. The actor, I'm just going to call him Ramsay because you all know who Ramsay is if you watch Game of Thrones. He really did do a great job at highlighting how like he was a no nonsense guy, and that you kind of didn't. If he looked at you, you kind of were going to crap your pants because he was kind of scary.
Another thing that the more that I think about it, and Mick's drinking, not once throughout the entire movie do I ever remember him stumbling, slurring, falling over himself, or unable to do something that wasn't pertaining to his degenerative bone disease.
Well, so here's another thing I'm kind of questioning too, because I could have sworn that I can't recall if he actually knew about the disease.
Oh, he did.
That early on. Like, I always kind of got the impression that he didn't really know until much later what was going on. Like, in the movie, they kind of imply that,
they
like...
They said that he knew about
it way ahead of time.
Yeah,
as soon as he was walking into the audition, he knew that he was going to be an old man the rest of his... But, I don't know, something about that. And also, like, the hips... I'm sorry, but, like, going back to the last 20 minutes... He didn't get hip surgery until 2004. Like, that whole thing just got blurred. But no, you're right though. They really showed the band in much more control.
Rose-colored glasses. The best possible picture you could paint of the band while keeping some semblance of this is what happened.
So, and also something that kind of drove me nuts was that literally everyone around them were kind of made to look and sound slightly like bumbling fools.
Kinda, yeah.
So, for instance, like Pete Davidson plays the A&R executive who signs them.
Yeah.
And well, first off, his role is kind of exaggerated because he left Elektra Records way before. Like, he actually moved over to Geffen Records by '87. So the fact that they implied that, like, well, also again going back to glamorizing the industry part. it wasn't as simple as an A&R exec going, hey, here's your rights back. It was like a huge, long legal battle. And that was another thing that I really think... So they make him look like a bumbling idiot in the movie, when in truth, he was actually one of the only few people in the industry fighting for Motley Crue. There's a great part in the book where Tom, the A&R exec, is actually recalling he just so happened to be walking by Elektra's radio department. And there was 2 acts that the radio department was forced to really push the radio stations. And he overheard going, no, like, forget about Motley Crue. Don't even play them. Play this band. And he had to go in there yelling at them, going, if I hear you say that one more time, I'm going to kill it. Like, they make him sound like he had no backbone, that he was the comic relief.
Like he was a kid who just started his first job.
When really, he was one of the few people actually supporting the band, giving them the push. And same kind of goes for Doc. So they highlight that, like, Doc's like, yeah, I manage all these bands. I make sure that they get money. But they also kind of make him seem like he's out of touch. That like, oh, I didn't know that you had mommy issues. I thought I was doing a good thing by bringing her here. Or, oh, I didn't realize that Nikki changed the album title to Theater of Pain. Now I feel silly for having this tattoo on my arm of the old album title. Like, they make him sound much more aloof when really, like I said, like he knew what he was doing. He was also a huge supporter. Like, so literally, they make it sound like it was just the 4 of us against the world. When it's like. Kind of.
Not really.
Kind of, but at the same time, you did have... And the book does a great job at highlighting how, yeah, the odds were against Motley Crue. But thanks to people like Doc, thanks to people like Tom, they had a fighting chance. And I feel like they still could have, even if they kind of gave Doc and Tom more backbones, they still could have highlighted, like, which is where I go back to the lack of the industry aspect. Because one of my favorite scenes was them recalling how Nikki, Tommy, and John, and one of their managers, was flying from LA to New York to meet with Elektra, only for John, who was at that point the new singer, was forced to wait in the lobby. And they go up to meet the head, and Elektra's like, the Elektra president or head of the company was like, all right, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get rid of the new guy. You're going to bring back the old guy. You're going to do a live album with the old guy. Then you're going to do a new album, which at first they were like, no, we're not going to do that, even though that's exactly what ended up happening. And then someone came in and was like, no, let them do what they want to do. And then they come downstairs and like John's kind of sitting there nervous and Nikki's like, you still got a job, like as if he was joking, even though that literally is what happened. And he makes the comment in the book, it's like, he had no clue that he was so close to losing the gig. The next page, Don goes, no, I knew, because they literally told me in the car as we were leaving how lucky I was that I still had a job. Like, they could have still shown how the industry was against them every step of the way. Instead, they just act like, yeah, we did some clubs, then we broke out and then we got to play the Forum. Like,
yeah, that was one of the things that bothered me a lot, was the very first show when they said that, okay, our first show, somebody heckled us, spit on Vince's pants, and then we got into a fight. From the research I did on scene in particular, because I'm thinking, did that really happen?
Yeah.
Did it? Yeah, no, their first show, they opened up for some of the bigger 80s bands at the time, and it went over pretty well.
They completely also missed an opportunity to highlight how, you know what? It wasn't all bed of roses in the beginning. For instance, one of their biggest opportunities to break big was at the U.S. festival, where they completely sucked. And even they were like horrified as soon as they were done with the set, especially because they were begging with the camera crews to delete the video that MTV was there filming or whatever. Like, literally, like, they could have done so much to highlight how, like, yeah, it was kind of a fight.
Right, it was hard.
And we fought. And we kicked ass.
But not literally fight. I don't think that actually happened.
I wouldn't be... I didn't mind that part because it kind of highlighted that from a cinematic point, it's like, all right, here's a band that had each other's backs in the beginning.
But you can do that in other ways, like you've been saying about other things. I think if you're going to keep to, air quote, accuracies, at least, like, how did you start? You didn't start out in a club and hitting some guy upside the head with your bass and then going into a crowd and fighting.
I mean, A, that might have happened, and B, that was them trying to show how punk they were.
Yeah, but come on. I mean, once again, stick to somewhat accuracies here.
Yeah. There was a lot of things that they chose to show and not show that kind of baffles me. Like stuff that would have made for a great movie that they could have highlighted. Like, they could have avoided a lot of the cheesiness
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, and going back to my point of how they could have done a lot more of breaking the fourth wall or like showing different point of views, like even the scene where Nikki fires Doc, which that's not how it happened. Do you know the story of how they actually fired Doc?
Vaguely.
So in the movie, sorry, spoiler alerts, Nikki comes down to the lobby and Doc's like, I got a surprise, got a fun little surprise for you. Merry Christmas. Here's your mom. Which, if you know from the beginning of the movie, Nikki and his mom have a very bad relationship, so that freaks Nikki out, and he fires Doc over it. In real life, what happened was there was the festival that Doc put together in Moscow. It's an anti-drug festival, so he got Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, Bon Jovi, Scorpions, and Skid Row. I'm blanking on some of the other bands to play this big festival in Moscow during Cold War era Russia, as a way to essentially get out of having to go to jail for his own drug problem, which is all of it very ironic. The biggest drug bands in the world playing this anti-drug festival because their manager got arrested for drugs. Because all these bands were so big, Motley Crue was kind of stuck at the bottom, even though they were huge at that point. And they were also told no one got pyro. It was just going to be a straightforward set. So not only was the band already pissed off that Bon Jovi, another band that Doc managed, was the headliner, suddenly, within the first song, boom, there goes the pyro. So Nikki's like, what the hell? You just lied to our faces, and that's how Doc got fired. And what would have been really funny is, so this dramatic scene happens, Nikki storms off, and Doc just turns to the camera going, this isn't actually how I got fired. What I did to get fired, I actually deserved. Read the book. Like that, even just like that simple kind of thing, it's like, it involved a festival. You know what, just read the book. Like, something like that could have been a fun way to just like address the fact that Motley Crue decided to not tell an accurate story, but in a fun way, while also calling back to the book and like, hey, maybe promoting the book and maybe encouraging new people to read it. Yeah. Because it's been so long. So, I don't know. I think there's, as much as I try to look at it as just a fun rock and roll movie, there was just too many missed opportunities.
Right. And then, putting this out so close to when Bohemian Rhapsody hit on Blu-ray and DVD, and I think that seeing that movie, it was great. Yeah, it had its own inaccuracies and things like that, but just seeing how very much so well done that was. Yeah. That kind of, when you watch this one, it's like, there's just something not right about this.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that Bohemian Rhapsody makes this look terrible. Like,
no,
it's still fun, it was actually it was actually well done. It wasn't like oh my God, I
can't.
It's not like I'm like cringing myself every time I'm watching this. It's just, it could have been more.
Right. It could have been a lot more. It could have been a little bit more accurate, but it is what it is at this point.
So this was supposed to be a 2 minutes to review episode that obviously went way past 2 minutes. But I mean, I think that just kind of goes to show you how it's funny, because I'm not a huge Motley Crue fan, but because of their relevance to just at least the metal scene, like it's fun. Like, there's just such a well documented band that like we can go down a rabbit hole in this. Yeah.
All right, so getting back to the initial intent, what was my time?
Well, I went first, so you tell me my time.
Your time.
Drum roll.
3 minutes, 54:91. Yeah, you were a little over.
Well, do you want to take a guess as to whether or not you were a little over?
I'm going to say I was probably at about the 2:15 mark.
You were at 2 minutes and 24 seconds.
Okay. So we both lose.
We both lose.
But you win because you got a longer review of the movie.
Or you lose too because you didn't want to hear that long of a review of the movie.
I'm sure if they didn't want to hear it, they would have turned it off by now.
That's true. Well, thanks so much for listening. We want to hear your thoughts on the movie, though. So let us know what you thought. Comment on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Epic Footnote. Comment on YouTube as well. We want to hear your feedback on the movie, whether we're completely off or if you also agree with us. And hopefully you tune into another episode of 2 Minutes to Review, which we promise will be much shorter.
Yeah, take it easy, guys. See you next time.
See ya.